desperation of a dying man comes when that's no longer acceptable, and you don't have any place to go. uh when a doctor tells you you're not going to live out the day, and that to
The
call your
day,
children
the day.
and to call your children and call your family, and
Wow.
your internal response is, I can't do that.
Wow.
So when you have that place in time, you do hit a desperation of the dying man, where your spiritual connection, whatever that is to you, becomes kind of like, the military said there's no atheists in a foxhole. Well,
Yeah.
here you are in this foxhole, and you don't have any choice but to try to reach for something.
Yeah.
And you know that's where that comes from. So the exploration of that for myself was in writing this book, was to try to help somebody understand that it's okay if you could identify these different places as you work your way through this, but it's not as simple as just saying, I surrender. um, Acceptance and surrender, admittance, acceptance, and surrender have to be done in a certain way for the person with the desperation of a dying man. It can't be surrender and then admittance. It can't be admittance. It can't be admittance and then surrender. You have to accept your fate of the desperation of your state first. Like,
Yep.
you have to accept to yourself that you have no other options. Then you can admit where you're at to yourself, and then you can surrender. It can't be the other way around. If it's the other way around, you're just managing your disease on the way to getting there.
Hello and welcome to another exclusive interview by Recovery Today magazine, where first and foremost, we're a magazine of hope. Whether you're considering addiction recovery for yourself or a loved one, maybe you're actively in recovery a short while, or maybe it's many, many years, you're going to find all kinds of topics related to addiction, recovery, and really living a happy, successful, sober life at Recovery Today. I'm Rob Hanley. I'm the editor-in-chief, and as usual, another really, really awesome guest. This one is very, very familiar. He has been featured several times in Recovery Today, partly because he's so badass and because we become friends. As has, by the way, his wife, KT, which is a whole nother story, has also been featured. He is somebody in the Unique Club who summited Mount Everest twice. He's a Marine combat veteran who has been tried by fire through substance abuse, depression, homelessness. Today, he is the founder of one of the fastest growing revolutionary mental health franchises in the country or in the world for that matter, called Zion Healing. And he has also written another book which just blew me away, called Desperation. We're going to talk about both of these things. My guest, my friend, Robert Beatty. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Good to be interviewed again by you guys. I love it.
One of the things I love is, like, every time I call you up, like, there's people, we all know the saying that, there's some people that drain you, there's some people that charge you, some people are like, oh, this is going so bad, or this is such and such. And dude, like, I'd like to be everybody's cheerleader, but particularly since we're friends, like, freaking love calling you, because like every time I call you, there's something kick ass that's going on. You're like, oh yeah, we got this going on, we got this going on. It's like, yeah. So I just love to hear good people. And who doesn't like a Rocky story, man? It would be one thing if you're like some trust fund baby or something like that, fucking guy, but
Yeah.
you're the whole, the veteran, the whole, all this kind of stuff. Love the Rocky story. So maybe actually for anyone who's not this is going to be a little bit of a continuation. Like, tell us what's going on with Zion Healing, with the franchise. Why would I say it's fast growing and revolutionary? But give us a little bit of your backstory for anybody that's not caught up on any of the other issues. And then let's kind of go into, what's the latest and coolest and greatest. And then we'll talk about the book.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for having me, Rob. I've been in the business for 13 years, as you know, and I cut my teeth opening residential treatment programs after I went through the fire that I went through, and spent a few years homeless, and clawed my way back, and through an education in this field, and then decided I was going to dedicate my life to helping others in behavioral health. Opened up treatment centers, as you know. The Retreat at Zion was a successful inpatient program that you have featured before.
Yep.
But we started to refine a model that could be duplicatable, because opening up, hundreds or even dozens of residential treatment programs would be capital intensive. And franchising to us became a natural transition based on our outpatient model, which is simplistic, that involves TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, neurofeedback. We do brain mapping for the brain. It shows an image to our students of the damage in the brain, and as it progresses through treatment, they are able to see in real time how in these further mappings and images, how these issues that they have diminish. And that model has been very successful for us individually, but it's also proving to be very successful as a franchise. 20 area developments, 60 clinics in development, opening in various stages of licensing. If anything, we're trying to slow it down a little bit, because
Wow.
it is such a needed thing in the industry, and as you know, it has a bit of a stigma around it, that people believe that anybody who's running a residential or an outpatient treatment program must be getting rich. So everybody wants to get in it, and they don't understand that it is a lot of work, as your brother will tell you. Greg will tell you, there is a lot of work for the little money that you receive in this industry. There is a ton of work that has to be done, and there's no schools to go to. You can't learn it. There's no one going to teach you this business, and so most of the people that get into this business learn, like I did, learn by fire, trial and error, and find their way, or they go under. We have made a successful model work on a simplistic theory, and the simplistic theory is that mental illness and substance abuse should be treated in a clinical setting. That it is a disease of the body with an obsession of the mind. It's a two-part disease. It has an allergy of the body and an obsession of the mind, and that both of those issues should be treated in a clinical setting, not a lockdown facility. And so the residential inpatient treatment centers we still own, we develop for our Veterans Initiative. They have this vital piece in this cog, but then moving people and transitioning them to clinical setting, outpatient, and then going after and dealing with the underlying issues that are the driving factors behind their substance abuse and their mental illness. Those issues being depression, major depressive disorder, anxiety, fear, spiritual disconnection, all of those things. Education.
So tell me, like, spotlight a little bit, like, the efficacy, because when we went to dinner, you told me about the hard cases. Maybe I'll actually give you a chance to, there was somebody that you knew, I'll say, or was related to, perhaps, for anonymity, or you can tell. I don't want to reveal anything, but you told me a story about someone close to you, I guess I will say, in terms of how you got into this. And then you told me some stories of some, like, hard case stories, like, yeah, I'm here because it's like the end of the road type of stuff. And what has happened in terms of the efficacy of this, and which also then explains a little bit about why so fast growing, why why in terms of like a mental health franchised operation, which is obviously probably not that many, but like why. So if you could start like a little bit, like, what kind of results are you seeing and that stuff like that?
We deploy a lot of different modalities, not just talk therapy or group therapy. Granted, that's a part of it, but TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, QEEG, neural feedback, with that brain mapping and the QEEG piece, and theta, some of the things that we do, hypnotherapy, even we do a lot of hypnotherapy. But dealing with the underlying issues. Most treatment centers in the United States are run a matrix model of treat and release. The people check in, they have an insurance policy or they private pay, and you put them in a treatment program that lasts about 28 days. But really, can you really beat a disease in 28 days becomes the issue, right? Are we going to conquer any disease known to mankind in a short little 28-day window, or even shorter than that? If you included a detox portion of that of 5 days, you might have 14 days of actual treatment, 14 or 20 days of actual treatment. Are we actually going to conquer the disease of addiction and mental illness without the deployment of additional services, an aftercare program, an outpatient program, some technology, and a long ball, where we're setting up this long reach out there for a success track that has a individualized treatment plan that takes somebody from the desperation of a dying man, where they had to get to get into treatment in the first place, through the transition, and then past the transition of dealing with the shock of that, of, oh my God, this is who I am, and this is what I've become, and now I'm one of them. I'm not one of me anymore. I'm now one of them. And then I've got to transition through that, and I've got to try to hold on to my sobriety and my mental stability long enough for some recovery program to actually catch hold, right? So efficacy of our program is extremely high, because we don't we never treat and release. It's not something that we do at Zion Healing. If somebody's here because they need a program to satisfy a judge, sign off on a ticket for a DUI class, we're just not the group. That's not what we do. We develop long-term individualized treatment plans that deal with every single aspect of their issue, of their disease, of their behavioral health or behavioral side of the disease, the behavioral side of it. And then we're setting up a long-term track on that treatment plan to take them to success. And we have a high degree of success because of that. It's all education, and follow-up.
And the bottom line is it works, which is why when you put a franchise model together, it's taken off.
That's correct. So when we put the franchise model together and showed it to therapists, to licensed individuals, medical doctors who have a desire to be in this field and don't know how to get into it, you wouldn't believe how many medical doctors there are out there who are in the medical field because they want to save lives and they want to help people, who would jump into the behavioral health industry, and no one is there to teach them how to do that. So we're filling that niche.
Very, very cool. And I know that you've got some pretty cool franchise owners, right? You've got a couple of famous, I don't know if you give them a shout out or not, but I thought it was pretty cool.
We do. Yeah, we've got a guy named Matthias Kiwanuka that played for the New York Giants for about 9 years. And Matthias is our franchisee out of Miami, Florida. He's an amazing individual.
Yeah, I'm going to meet him. You're supposed to introduce me.
Yeah, he's actually. Well, I keep trying to get you hooked up with him. Matthias is busy trying to get his practice. Make sure.
All right, okay. Well, so catch me up then. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off. Matthias, and who else?
I will introduce you. He's an amazing guy. He's a product of our program. He's been through our program.
Not at the risk of leaving. It's sounding like we're leaving any of the franchisees out. I want to actually get into some of the coolness of what is going on as I've kind of followed the story from, this amazing results that you were getting with your own place, Zion Healing, or Zion Healing Center, actually, which is in St. George, Utah, to the whole idea that, hey, we're either going to take this public, go IPO, or we're going to franchise it, all these different things where we can start to leverage. And then that happened. And then now that's underway. And you've got a couple of different initiatives. You've got some cool things that we were going to talk. So what is kind of give me the lay of the land and how many you have, and then what's new, what's coming out?
Well, the franchise is organically growing on its own. It's going the way we want it to go, and probably far exceeds our expectations of growth. Initiatives on the future, on the horizon immediately. We developed a veterans initiative. Obviously, I'm a veteran, and so very passionate about those guys. And the VA itself is underserviced. Like the VA is are underfunded. You know, I shouldn't say underserviced. It's underfunded, and so they don't have the resources that they need from our government to give enough residential treatment for veterans. Like there's not a lot of beds available for those guys. You know, it might shock you to know, Rob, that there was a recent study that came out by Alabama State University, and that study showed that about 44 veterans take their life every single day, and the only reason for that is because they're not getting the support that they need and the help that they need. They're on heavy medications. That seems to become the norm. I'm a product of that. I was no different until I lost everything and ended up homeless. There's no difference between them and me. It's just that by the grace of God, I found my way out of it. Somebody needs to step up, and we're doing that through our Veterans Initiative. And we just launched a $25 million raise. So it's a pre-IPO raise that will take a subsidiary company of ours called Zion Development Corporation and fund it with enough money to build 10 residential programs that are specifically just for veterans in the United States. And we're going to selectively place those in the hub areas of master franchisees locations so that we take on the residential piece and feed the outpatient services to them and the TMS and the neurofeedback. And we take these veterans through that transition. When they can't find a bed through the VA, they can find it with us. Wow. We're in with TRICARE. We're a TRICARE provider. We're an Optum provider on the East Coast, and our centers are going to be able to help these guys when they couldn't find any room at the VA. They're going to find it with us.
Wow, that's. I was really excited to hear that, because although I'm not a vet, I'm the son of a vet, and I've got a real thing for veterans. You know, I'm the guy that says thanks for your service, and I'd give you a better seat on the plane or whatever it might be. And it really gets me mad when I see or hear about homeless veterans. Yeah. And I just think that there should be some contract that you go risk your life in hellholes and foreign lands and things like that, really for God knows what you're even risking your life for now. And I just think, like, no, man, like you should be, it should be virtually impossible that you.
Yeah. You know, the Veterans Community Network, the Community Care Network, they call it within the VA. We're a part of that. You know, we're a member of the Community Care Network within the VA, and you know they started their own initiative. The Community Care Network started to be able to outreach to people like me to say, can you help us? You know, we'll give you the patients, we'll give you the money to do this, but can you help us, because we're overwhelmed and we can't do this.
Wow.
And so if you go into, you know, we're a government contractor, so if you go into, if I was to log into the GSA right now as we speak, and just type in the word substance abuse treatment, I'm going to see 100 to 150 contracts that are available for me to bid on right now in behavioral health. That's how much it's needed. And so we're going to step up and do our part and do as much as we can, and see if we can make a difference. I firmly believe that we will. Yeah.
Every single life counts, though. You know, can you really make a measurable difference? Sounds like you probably can, but every single person is somebody's daughter, son, brother, you know. So, well, you know, I really was bursting to kind of share that news, because that's significant. 10 more places, and then everything that you have going on. And I just love the whole idea of what you're doing with the therapy is, you know, you take these hard cases. It's like, yeah, I'm here, I'm into the road. So, you know, last kind of stop for me. This really isn't going to work, you know, not to be disrespectful, but, you know, I've tried everything, and then they try it and they come back and they're like, wow, man, I feel great. And then I love the idea of the imaging too. Like, well, let's take a look at what is it behind your left eye again here? What is that spot?
The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex of the brain.
Okay.
That that is responsible for mood regulation. It's to put it in simplistic terminology, it's where that dopamine engine is at, right? That is generating the dopamine and the secretion of serotonin, the things that we need to keep us on a level where we're
And
not
is
in.
the governor for anxiety and for depression. You were telling me we were at dinner and you go, cure anxiety and depression. Really no addiction. Is that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you could take care of the depression and the anxiety,
Yeah.
it cuts a path to a shorter path to freedom, because you're dealing with the underlying issue instead of putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
Because if you just put somebody in treatment, that issue is still going to be there. It's going to be alive and well when they leave.
Nuts, crazy, crazy, crazy nuts. So at the risk of it really could almost be two features because, like I said, I wanted to do kind of a catch up. We'll do one again, of course, because I'll call you again and you'll blow my mind with something else, I'm sure. But I want to talk about the book. So, I've read some of your other books, and you told me this one took you 3 years to write. This is your third book, is that right? Your third book.
This is my fourth book.
Fourth book. Okay, I'm sorry. So you've written some others. I know that this one you said it took you 3 years to write, and it was very, very difficult to write. And I started to read it. I got into it, and I love words. I love communication. I like word. I'm one of those people that I read. I sub vocalize. That's what it's called. So I'm a slow okay, which means I'm a slow reader, right? Like it's not Evelyn Woods here, but I also retain stuff very, very good as well. But consequently, like when I read, and I love reading like personal development books, but I like reading the older ones because there's kind of this musical prose. It's almost melodic and like there's a and it's also like the word choice. And I read it and I remember I texted you. I'm like, dude, you can fucking write, man. Like it was like only way I could describe it. It was like, I'm like reading this is like eating some kind of like nice dessert or tiramisu or something. I just was like word images and things like that. So the book is called Desperation. Lay it on us, man.
It's called Desperation of a Dying Man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Desperation of a Dying Man. I forgot the book. Okay.
And so this book is near and dear to my heart because I think, I have an opinion that in order for somebody to actually find freedom, real true freedom from mental illness or substance abuse or an addiction, of disease, cancer, diabetes, multiple sclerosis, doesn't matter, to find real true freedom from that, there's nothing going to fix that other than you've got to get to a place where there's enough desperation within you to seek help in the right areas, right? The right people to help you, the right people with the right message, a spiritual connection, all of those things have to come into play in order to find freedom from these life issues. And the life issues are going to be daunting and continue. So how does somebody get to a place where they actually can understand what that is? So a lot of people talk about the bottom. We talk about the bottom. Well, Cord doesn't have a bottom. He doesn't have a bottom, or maybe he hit bottom and that he finally found his bottom. And we keep hearing that. And I kind of look at it in a different way. I look at the bottom as being a very elusive, ongoing thing. And it's very elusive because when you're in your mental illness or your addiction, when you're stuck in that addictive mind and in the addictive body, everything that happens to you that you would think would be a devastating enough marker for you to find a bottom really becomes an acceptable new low. If you have a substance you can drown it out with, or you can medicate it with, then you start to accept the new acceptable reality that you're living with. Every single person you ever talk to with a long-term sobriety, when you listen to their stories, they're going to be the same story. In the back of this book, there's about 7 or 8 stories in the back of this book that are personal stories of people that have come through my programs, and
that's going to make me cry.
Oh yeah, you got to get some tissue paper. These are really heavy stories, but you'll read the same underlying story in every one of them, and that every one of these people found their unacceptable new low. And when it became unacceptable, one guy's unacceptable new low might be entirely different than mine.
There's
But
there's some I have met some bad unacceptable lows, man. Like Brandon Novak comes to one of our covers comes to name. I will well no I'll spare it. I'll spare that story. But it was like damn you oh my god dude really.
But you know what I'm talking about. So until we find the unacceptable new low, we're in this elusive journey that is just always fluid, and it's always moving around on us, and we're always managing and chasing that until something catastrophic has happened to us physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally that is unacceptable. We're not going to find that recovery. We're not going to finally get there, because it's only in that place that we're actually going to go, help me, please, 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 please help me, to people around us, to the spirit world, to whatever you call that. It doesn't matter. It's at that place that we go, please, please help me. And then you start that journey out of that. But if you don't ever hit it, you're just on this, you're on a journey of the addiction and the mental illness, and you're on the way, but you're gonna hit some pretty unacceptable things that
You got to have a lot of the times you're not even aware of it though. You do these things and we tell these stories. Like I said, I'll say that one, but there's like, in the depths of depravity type of stuff. Like maybe I'll just say like selling your body on the street or whatever it might be. And I'm not casting any aspersions because I really see this as that's the whole point, is that this mental illness, like you're out of your mind. You're not even in control anymore. But maybe there's these periods where you have a moment of clarity, as we say, and then you can think, oh, this has gone too far. What am I doing?
What am I doing? So the book, as you're reading, is helping you. Each chapter is helping you to analyze and look at those new lows in a little different light, right? So that you can start to see where they're coming, and actually see that you're actually see that you're getting to those places of that near desperation of the dying man, where you're going to have to make a decision to actually do something about this. And so this book explores the first step of this, which is, the admittance, acceptance, and surrender. Those three issues are found within this book, and it gets into it really deep on how to identify what you're seeing and what you're experiencing as you go along there. All told from personal experiences from myself and from other mentors that I have.
Is there any story that you think of, one of the crying stories, and we don't have to make it cry necessarily, but is there any story that you could think of? I said, like, what kind of stories, that one or two that might jump out that you could briefly, either kind of cliff notes, or this is how it started, this is how it ended, in terms of contrast, I guess I would probably say.
I had a gal that came through my program, her stories in my book, and she when she was 8 years old, she was kidnapped and thrown in the back of a van from a schoolyard, and sold into a child slavery, sex slavery. And
that's real. It's real. Yeah.
And it happened to her, and she describes her story. When you read it, is pretty difficult to read, because she describes in detail the emotion of what she went through when this happened to her, and how that morphed into this acceptable new low that she was experiencing.
Yeah.
That it became her reality, that the drugs and the abuse and the life that she was now had been thrown into and could not escape from actually became her new reality. And then she had a guy that was involved with her in that world, who actually helped her get out of it. And then she has gone on. She works for treatment centers. She's a product of our program. She's been through our program, and now she's an advocate working for this business of sex, child
sex trafficking. Yeah.
Sex trafficking. And she's an advocate again, for groups against that. And she's helping young ladies. She's working for a treatment center up north and helping young ladies who've been through the same thing that she's been through.
That's the number one criminal enterprise now. So even over drugs, over
Yeah.
guns. So, yeah, it's the number one because you can do these kids. I will say just for a little bit of gravity, that for those who don't know, is you sell a bag of of course, fentanyl probably super profitable and cheap, but you sell a bag of smack or whatever it is to somebody, you have to move it, you have to sell it. These are children that they sell that do like sometimes 20 or 30 tricks, or they're raped, I guess I would say 20 or 30 times a day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for as a spiritual person who likes the whole idea of justice, I just think like if you don't believe in hell, I mean, there almost needs to be a hell and a special place in hell for people like that. Like I don't even know, man. It just enrages me. So
I have to believe that there probably is that's going
there's got to be.
have
So
to be.
God bless you for helping somebody like that. Like I mean, that's about. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that at all. That is about as extreme as you can get. So this might be a simple question or like a duh kind of question, but just to kind of complete everything, like why did you write it? Where did it come from in terms of, I'm going to write this book, and then maybe even naming it, where did this come from, and what was the intent of it?
Yeah, when I have a student come into my programs, I talk about their reasons why they're here, right? Initial conversations are, why are you here? What are you doing? What
Yep.
do you accomplish? What I'm seeking, and I tell them right up front what I'm seeking, the reason I'm asking you all these questions, I'm trying to decipher whether or not you have enough desperation about you for me to spend my time trying to help you out of this. Because I only have so much time to help people in this world, and I'm dedicated to that. And I don't want to waste my time on somebody that's not there. And so I call that the desperation of a dying man, which is the same place that I was at in 2010 when I was told that I would not live the day. That took me to a place of the desperation of dying man, and my story's in this book as well.
Yep.
What it took for me to get to that place where I actually had that desperation, where fear of dying was no longer the issue. The fear of living another single day was.
Talk to me a little bit about the whole idea of surrender and the spiritual surrender. And because you wasn't like you're just somebody that went to treatment one time and got it. Like you really, really, were down, and you had many unsuccessful at bats. But then you had this I don't know, this Damascus Road experience, or you had this new concept and perception. Take me through a little bit. I don't want to give away too much about in the book, but the whole idea of this surrender, for you personally, maybe I would say everyone, it's a higher power of whatever your own belief is. But take me through the surrender part and how important and pivotal that was, necessary to your recovery.
Well, I had been, in short, I mean, I won't go into every detail of it, but in short, I had been to, multiple treatment centers, Rob, and 7 of them, as a matter of fact, inpatient programs, and failed in all levels of treatment, and failed in all levels of the justice system. I'd spent an inordinate amount of time in jail, from drug trafficking, DUIs, probation violations, and could not conquer my demons. And to the point where I lost everything, ended up homeless, lost my home and my business and my money and everything that I had, and ended up living homeless on the streets of Salt Lake for what I thought was going to be a temporary stay in a hotel, turned into 18 months of hell on the streets, and heroin addiction, alcohol addiction, everything I could get my hand on. And I looked at I analyzed this in my own story. I looked at the downward slide of the progression of that, of the managing. And I always thought that all I would have to do is get to a place where I could surrender, which I was unwilling to do. I'm a Marine. I'm not going to surrender to anything, that type of bullheadedness, and the only thing I've ever quit is a job. I'm not going to quit drinking, that, that mentality, but looking at the downward slope of that and the progression of that, and getting to a place where the unacceptable new low just kept the elusiveness of that, just kept moving away from me. Do I really need a home? Do I really need a car? Do I really need money? I could panhandle. I could stand on the street, which I did. Veteran with a sign, veteran, need your help. I could get money. I could buy a hotel room. I could get another bottle. I could get another fix. I could make it through another day. But the physical toll on that started to get to the place where that desperation started to come into picture, even though I didn't know it. And in a final episode of that, having a heart attack that led to a heart failure, that led to because of my liver failure, and the catastrophic liver failure, my kidneys and the esophagealitis from the torture of vomiting, lots of alcohol, and going through the hell of that, and being in an ICU unit where I'm listening to a doctor tell me your liver is not functioning at all, like you have no function. And
That's
so
pretty bad.
the heart failure and the kidneys and everything else are because of the liver, and you're not getting out of here. Like, we got enough tubes in you to drain the fluid off of your body, and there's more fluid pooling in your body than is coming out, and you're going to die before the end of this day.
Wow.
So the desperation of a dying man. The desperation of a dying man comes when that's no longer acceptable, and you don't have any place to go. When a doctor tells you you're not going to live out the day, and that to call
the day
and to call your children and call your family, and
wow.
your internal response is, I can't do that.
Wow.
So when you have that place in time, you do hit a desperation of the dying man, where your spiritual connection, whatever that is to you, becomes kind of like, the military said there's no atheists in a foxhole. Well, here you are in this foxhole, and you don't have any choice but to try to reach for something.
Yeah.
And that's where that comes from. So the exploration of that for myself was in writing this book, was to try to help somebody understand that it's okay if you could identify these different places as you work your way through this, but it's not as simple as just saying, I surrender. Acceptance and surrender, admittance, acceptance, and surrender have to be done in a certain way for the person with the desperation of a dying man. It can't be surrender and then admittance. It can't be admittance. It can't be admittance and then surrender. You have to accept your fate of the desperation of your state first. Yep. Like, you have to accept to yourself that you have no other options. Then you can admit where you're at to yourself, and then you can surrender. It can't be the other way around. If it's the other way around, you're just managing your disease on the way to getting there.
And what about ego? what about ego in how this entwines? Because we always tend to think that ego is bad, or it's the thing that we want to, but there's also good parts to it. So how does ego, how does it relate into, I mean, you have a chapter that's, ego and powerlessness. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think the ego has a gigantic part in our issue of not being able to get out of our own way. If we can't get out of our own way, we won't find that place to get to a place of the admittance, the acceptance, and the surrender. You can't get there. If your ego is standing in the way, you're always going to be managing your disease. I mean, in the treatment industry, we deal with it every day. So, we educate a lot on that. Whole chapter is on looking at how your ego actually affects your ability to get to a place where it's no longer, this disease of yours is no longer acceptable, and it's no longer manageable, because your ego's standing in the way, telling you that it is. And so that chapter is dedicated to helping you understand why that ego's in the way, and what it does to you to have it in the way, and then how to disperse it, how to get rid of it, and how to overcome that. My ego, hey, listen, I suffered for 15, 20, 15 to 20 long years of suffering, some of which was homelessness. And I can tell you that my ego was standing in my way all the way up to the night that I was told I was dying, all the way to that place. My ego, I never surrendered to it. And so my purpose of writing this book is in hopes that some people will listen to this and start analyzing some of these things, so maybe they don't have to go as far as I went, because a lot of people that go as far as I went are no longer with us. I got lucky.
I just don't know, like your story is so remarkable, from the climbing of Mount Everest. And by the way, filmed a documentary that we featured a couple of times too in previous issues, called, I think it's called The Sherpa. Is that right? Yeah. Or something like that, or maybe it's just Sherpa. Yeah. And then the which is just freaking remarkable for anybody to climb Mount Everest in the first place. It's a pretty small club. But then that, along with the low that you hit, and like what's unacceptable, and in your case, it's like you're going to die today. You're not going to leave the hospital. Can't even call your kids because you burned every bridge. And then to look at where you are now, somebody that's in successful long-term recovery. You have given and you've helped many other people. Think of this woman, that was kidnapped by demons, yeah, and endured hell, and you played a role in helping her, played a significant role in helping her and others. And now it's this, you just are the whole, go big or go home. I mean, now the whole idea, it's not just like we'll have one treatment center. There's a bazillion people. And then let's not forget about the veterans, and let's put 10 more. It's really, really, really remarkable, I have to say, which is, probably that's one of the reasons I just love having you in the magazine, is that it's such a story. It's such a cool possibility type of story of hope.
Yeah. Well, I guess my message for anybody that hears this or listens to it is that the best thing you can do is to get to a place where you can, accept this disease, accept the disease first, get to a place where you can admit that and accept that you have a disease that has to be dealt with, and that you're not escaping it. It's not going away, that you are going to die from it. How long it takes you to get there is your journey, but you are going to die from the disease, and that you need help. And so if you get help and you stay straight down the middle, all the other things that you have anxiety about and you have fears about, like you kids, losing relationships with your children. Some of my children I didn't speak to for 3 years when I was going through this. And my youngest daughter, I was legally not able to speak to her for 3 years. She works for me, man. She works here.
What a great redemption story.
Yeah. It all comes around. It comes back around. If you stay straight down the middle and you find your if you recover, because you get to that place where you can reach out and accept the help spiritually from people around you, like us, from counselors, from therapists, from psychiatrists, and you find your way through recovery and you stay straight down the middle, all of that comes back. Almost all of my kids work for me now. They're full time, and they're important to this organization.
So good. Well, let's do the connection tree kind of thing here. If somebody has a loved one, they themselves, or a loved one, and they're thinking, man, I need help for myself or for whomever, where do they go and what do they do for that?
Go to zionhealing.com. And there's a location finder in there on that website. You can find a location near you.
Okay.
Come and see, get a hold of us, please. Get some help. We're here to help you. You know, we're not here to judge you or tell you what to do, but we're here to offer you a real solid solution. So go to our website, find a location that's nearest you, and then please call us.
And then who are we looking for in terms of somebody thinking, I want to go, I can't even believe I'm here. I want to get in behavioral health. Like, how do I do that? How does this happen? Like, who is that? Is that a doctor? Is it a butcher, baker? Who is it? That is somebody that is a potential franchisee.
Yeah, on the franchise side, same thing. Go to our website. We have a franchise page there.
Easy.
If this is of interest to you and you want to be in this business, we can teach you this business, and we can do it very effectively, very cost effectively. It's not that big of an expense to be in this business. We need more treatment centers. You know, there's 27 million people a year trying to get into treatment, trying to build their insurance for it. And there's about 15,000 treatment centers in the US. We need more of us out there.
Yeah, we're
And,
losing.
you know, we'll help you. If you want to be in this business, call us because we'll help you get there.
And lastly, Amazon, I assume the book is it where we're Desperation of a Dying Man, Robert Beatty. I call him Robert Cord Beatty. Desperation of a Dying Man. And
Amazon's got it, Barnes and Noble's got it, everybody's, you know, all the booksellers have it.
Since you cried, I think that we probably mission accomplished. So I will stick the landing. But dude, thank you for everything that you do. Like I'm just like I said, I'm just proud to know you, and I just love, you know, I'm a cheerleader, man. I'm a big fan, and love the book. Love the book, Desperation of a Dying Man. So
thanks for having me. Anytime you want me to come on your program and cry,
of course, absolutely.
I'm a crier, baby. I'll cry anytime.
It'll be far from the last time. And so with that, another cool, fun, interesting, my friend, Robert Cord Beatty, and this is Wrap.